For wine geeks, when it comes to a high quality wine producer that you and me will care about, they'll have a flagship wine, a wine or an appellation they're known for. They'll make an entry level type wine, and then they'll make a reserve, a special, more expensive wine that's not made every single vintage. Entry level wines are usually made with younger vines or wines that are left over after they blend the flagship wine. For the reserve wines, they're usually wines that are aged a little bit longer in the barrel, or they come from a specific vineyard. Examples of this is like you'll find in Brunello di Montalcino, for example. You have the standard Brunello. You have the Rosso di Montalcino, which is made of Sangiovese as well. That's an entry-level price point. Then you'll have maybe a single vineyard or a Brunello Riserva. A lot of people ask me, well, which wine should I buy? Here today, we have a great producer. We have the wine which they are known for, Cabernet Sauvignon, which a lot of you love. We have an entry level, and then we have a special single vineyard that's not made every vintage. The producer we have today is Vas Felix from the Margaret River region in Australia. It's in Western Australia, about 3.5 hours south of Perth. Its claim to fame is the first producer to plant vines in Margaret River in 1967, I believe, so it's a fairly young region. I know there might have been small growers there that might have planted before that, but a lot of times Vas Felix gets that credit. I don't really love to talk about regions I haven't traveled to because you learn a lot by visiting a region, meeting the people. However, I feel a special kinship to Margaret River. One of the wines that really changed my life was a Shiraz from Margaret River, although the region's known more for great Cabernet Sauvignon, Bordeaux blends, and Chardonnay. I used to drink a lot more of these wines when I used to live in Singapore. When I was in private chiropractic practice, one of my patients was actually an importer of wines from all over Australia, and she specialized in Western Australia. Margaret River is known as a small, young region, but one of the regions producing Australia's finest wines. Some of the big names people will come across are Lewin Estate, Xanadu, Cullen, and Vas Felix. The entry-level wine we have here is about $28. The flagship wine's about $47, and then the top wine's about $165, $170. These are prices on the shelf in the USA. Price quality in wine is kind of a nebulous thing. One general guideline I go over is this price quality graph, whereas in the US, if you're looking about prices on the shelf, when you start at $25, $30 and work your way up to $50, you get a massive spike, a massive jump in quality. After $50, you start to get diminishing returns in terms of how good the wine is compared to how much you're spending. It happens with every type of product. And yes, I know that there are exceptions to the rule. A lot of people have that sweet spot, the $13 to $18, but hey, if you're spending that much already, buy 2 less Starbucks a week, maybe 1 less fast food meal, and just buy a $25, $30 wine. You'll get a massive step up in quality compared to what you're used to drinking. Now that we're talking about generalizations, my general rule of thumb is to find a great producer like we have here and buy their entry-level wine because they still put their care, their attention to detail into that wine. But we'll see here. Maybe I'll like the entry-level one, maybe I'll like the top one. Tasting out of my Gabriel Glas Standart Edition. Love this universal glass. I think it's going to be great for Cabernet Sauvignon. A lot of people ask me about the glasses I'm using. If I'm not talking about it, the link is in the description box below. I've wanted to do this tasting for a long time. For those of you that don't know, Cabernet Sauvignon, one of the world's greatest red wine grapes, hails from Bordeaux, makes some of the most richest, densest, most powerful, long-lasted dry wines. Let's start out with wine number 1 here. Here's the thing. Margaret River for me is a little bit unique because in a lot of the great wines of Southern Australia, around Adelaide, Victoria, the red wines, I always seem to pick up menthol type notes. Margaret River, I don't pick up those notes as much. Here, I pick up, I love a little bit of tobacco, a little bit of green pepper, a little bit of black cherry. There's a lot of nuance here. There's a little bit of mocha from the wood, but not chocolate. It's not a vanilla bomb. It's even got a touch of musky perfume, which I like. Wine 1 is layered. It's complex. The thing about Australian red wines is Aussies generally make their wines a little bit softer. What I mean by that, not as tannic, not as astringent drying as other countries. They're more about approachability, although this is more of a serious producer making wines that are meant to age. This has tons of layers of complexity. I mean, it's like, in wine, we want this nice balance between delineation where you can taste the different type of flavors, yet we want it to blend in. It's almost like fine dining. You want to taste the different ingredients, yet you want them to come together in perfect harmony. This wine does here. Wine 1's a heck of a start. All right, let's move on to wine 2. That was a good start. These are all with screw caps, so I had to use my Corvin pivot to take a little bit of wine out, then I had somebody mix them up for me as normal. 2, I get a lot of black olive. Smells a little bit younger. Black cherry type flavors. Maybe a little bit of pomegranate juice, not as mocha or tobacco-y as the first one. Doesn't have that muskiness, but it's intense too. Quite different wines. These are all mostly Cabernet. I know there might be some Malbec, Petit Verdot, also a little bit of Cabernet Franc in some of them. It smells great. For me, for my palate right now, this is not as layered as the first one. It's a little bit kind of bigger in your face, but it's still very good. Tannins are a little bit harder. What I mean by that, it's a little more astringent. So now I'm wondering, I'm thinking, I'm like, man, if this is a little more concentrated, might this be the reserve wine? Because it has more stuffings and it needs to age a little bit longer. Usually the entry-level wines also are made to be a little softer, a little bit more approachable. I don't know. Margaret River is a region that's known for Cabernet Sauvignon. I have to say, this is just my opinion. I know that people are going to get pissy when they hear this. I've found generally that the Cabernets are super enjoyable like we see here, although I haven't tasted the level of greatness as you can get in when you go to high-end Bordeaux, high-end Napa, high-end wines from Bulgaria and Tuscany. On the flip side, I think the Chardonnay from Margaret River just can compete with anybody in the world, hands down. Let's go into 3. 3 does not smell as complex at all as the first. I think 3 might be the entry level, which is perfectly fine. This is the most fruit forward, the most linear, most in your face. Black cherry, even a little bit of sour cherry. I like in Australia, the Cabernets aren't always dark fruit. You still get some of the red fruit flavors. As much as I love Margaret River, I think the most impressive Bordeaux blend I've ever had has been from the Yarra Valley. Yarra Yering red wine number 1, I believe. I know they make different cuvées. Yeah, just this is fruit. It smells younger. This has like a hint of menthol and rubber, but the fruit comes out the most. Fruit comes out the most in this one. I like the tobacco nuances in wine number 1. I feel like there's a pretty big difference in layers between wine 2 and 3 versus wine 1. These are all very, very good wines. For my palate personally, I enjoy wine number 1. We'll see which one it is. You got to remember that scores are not an end-all be-all. It's a snapshot of a moment of time, of an opinion. Supposedly an informed opinion. You might not agree. I don't agree. That's okay. Go out, taste, find what you like. I think very clearly, who knows, I might enjoy the entry-level wine because, again, they're made to be a little bit softer a lot of the times. 3 just smelled and tasted a little more youthful. It was fruity up front. There was still complexity there. This still has the potential to last a little bit of time in the bottle. I think a lot of people will love this wine. For me, this is a great barbecue wine, or this is something, the way the Australian Cabernet Sauvignon is, I think it's so much fruitier and approachable when a little bit younger. You bring this to like a dinner party of people that are more sophisticated, into wine a little bit more, but not true wine geeks, and they're gonna love it. I think this is the entry-level wine, and I give it 91 plus points. I think it's very good. Very, very good. I'm gonna say entry level. We'll see with the concentration. It is. This is the Vas Felix Filius Cabernet Sauvignon 2021. This is mostly Cabernet Sauvignon with 5.5% Malbec, 1.5% Petit Verdot. They get real specific here. $28. This was on Wine Spectator's top 10 wine values of 2023. I think this is an outstanding wine. 91 plus points. I think a lot of people are really gonna love it. Man, I'm telling you, I'm wowed by a lot of the entry-level Cabernet Sauvignons from Margaret River. I know Xanadu does a great one too. Let's go on to number 2 here, which I think is the flagship. Had just a little bit more complexity. You know what? It had bigger tannins than wine 1, so I might flip-flop between the flagship and the high-end wine. Who knows? This is just to my palate personally, but it's still very good. Tannins are a little bit harder. What I mean by that, it's a little more astringent. So now I'm wondering, I'm thinking, I'm like, man, if this is a little more concentrated, might this be the reserve wine? I'm gonna say this is the flagship wine. I am 92 plus on it. I think it's very good. I think it's very good. Flagship, flagship. That's where I got confused. This is the Voss Felix Tom Cullity Cabernet Sauvignon with a little bit of Malbec 2019. This is the premium wine, 165 bucks. This is 78% Cabernet Sauvignon, 22% Malbec. This is the first vineyard that they planted for this in 1967. One of the first plantings in Margaret River, 165, 170 bucks. So again, you know, I scored this one 91 plus. I scored this 92 plus. So even though scores you see a lot of times, they're logarithmic, as you'll see as you go up. That's just how the wine industry works. It's more like a 10, 15 point scale. So once you get past 90, every point is logarithmic, so it goes up a lot in quality. I did think this was a better wine, but bang for your buck, I think the entry level wins. So my favorite wine here was this one. I felt like it had more layers. Again, I did identify that this had bigger tannins, so I thought maybe it could be the more expensive wine, but this is the wine that I would prefer, I would buy. I gave it 94 points. I thought it was outstanding. I love the layers of flavors. And here we go. This is the Voss Felix Cabernet Sauvignon 2019. This comes in at 47 bucks. Mostly Cabernet Sauvignon with some Malbec Petit Verdot and just like a 0.5% of Cabernet Franc. I think this is an outstanding wine. I know I usually harp and scream to get the entry-level wine from a good producer, 28 bucks. This is 47 bucks. Now, is it almost double as good? I don't know, but 19 bucks, I think I have a much more enjoyable experience out of drinking the flagship wine. I don't know. So tell me, when you look at producers' portfolios, do you like the entry-level wine, the standard wine, or the reserve wine made only in special vintages like this Tom Cullity? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.